So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, today we're going to be continuing with our Tafseer, Surah Al-An'am. Let's just go over really quick what we were doing last time. So we are at ayah 141. وهو الذي أنشأ جنات معروشات وغير معروشات والنخل والزرع مختلفا أكله. And we talked about this ayah, and we said that al-Qurtubi said that there's 23 different matters, and it basically goes and tells us certain details. And he is the one that created Jannat, the different gardens that are ma'rushat, the ones that are basically put on, I think that was called trellis and or canopies. Okay, and the ones that don't basically go on canopies or the trellis. And at the end, that is basically to just tell us about the different variant plants that were created and the different types of blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us with. So then it continues, وَالنَّخْلَ وَالزَّرْعَ مُخْتَلِفًا أُكُلُهُ, and speaking about the palm trees, speaking about the variant types of plants, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created all of that as a blessing. But here's one thing that I think I didn't talk about last time, and I think I skipped it, which is the part, I was just reading it earlier, and he talked about az-zaytun, ar-rumman, the pomegranates and the olive trees and all of that. And he said, well, all the different things that were mentioned were in order to let us see the variant things were created by one that is not changing. In other words, it's only one Lord Almighty. Okay. And then therefore, all those things and the way that they would change, whether we're speaking about seasons, we're speaking about things that would be created in different plants, things developing, maybe going through different evolution, etc. Did you just say evolution? Did I hear that right? Yes, you heard that right. I said evolution. Um, the ayat do indicate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does create things, and we're speaking about not human creation, but we're speaking about whether plants or whether animals, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indicating that some things do go through some form or a state of evolution, development, in changes. So the ayat do actually indicate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as in Surah Al-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even said, وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, creates new things that you did not even know of. So that's basically to let us know that there are new things that will be created that were not created before, new things, new creations, new creatures coming, and at the same time to also let us know that it may come from previous things as well. Okay, and number two is that all the different things that were mentioned in terms of plants, in terms of creation, that's in order to indicate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings over us, and that he basically creates things not only as food or nutrients, but also as beauty as well. So in other words, there is a special emphasis on beauty in the importance of seeing beauty as a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just keep that one in mind. The importance and the reflection in the importance of seeing beauty and how it reflects on the beauty and the magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whether we're speaking about the beauty in appearance or whether we're speaking about the beauty or the sweetness in taste, you would have, I was just eating just a few minutes ago, pomegranates that were imported from Yemen. I don't think I had ever tasted anything better. I don't think I had ever eaten better pomegranates than these that were coming from Yemen. I thought the ones that were coming from Jordan were good, but nothing beats the Yemeni pomegranates. It is sweet and super sweet and delicious. And even the seeds are really small that you don't have to feel that they're blocking your uh, when you're eating it and when you're chewing it and even when swallowing it. I absolutely loved it. SubhanAllah, I just have to share it. Okay, so when we're speaking about sweetness in appearance, beauty in appearance, or even beauty in taste, that's to give us I guess a reflection even about Jannah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does emphasize about Jannah, that there is a certain appearance, and you would talk about a certain appearance in terms of gardens and in terms of waters, in terms of appearance of even the women there, or the way that things are presented, how things are basically done in a very royal way, if you say. And even when he talked about taste, وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا, and talked about the different tastes that are in Jannah, etc. So when we're talking about blending with beauty, whether you're blending with a taste of beauty, or whether you're blending with the appearance, or you're blending with it in terms of surrounding it. In other words, it's containing you. That's so beautiful to actually think of, that beauty just goes farther than just appearance, but it's also blending and delving in the beauty itself. Okay, and certainly it's not just beauty in taste and the sweetness in taste, or the beauty in appearance, but it's also that it's accessible to reach. It's accessible to reach. In other words, that way that you can feel that you are connected to it in a close way. Okay, let's see, number 3, and basically focused on the part, and that's the area of al-Qurtubi basically focused on the taste of it, and the way that it functions, basically the water and how it goes in opposite direction of what gravity would take in, but it basically goes upwards to develop, whether the stem, develop the leaves, develop the fruits, develop all those different things, in order to let us know that the one that had brought the function into all of this is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to look at this one when he actually said, I think I translated this one, وَثَمَرٌ خَارِجٌ مِنْ صِفَتِهِ الْجِرْمُ الْوَافِرُ وَاللَّوْنُ الزَّاهِرُ وَالْجَنْيَ الْجَدِيدُ وَالطَّعْمُ اللَّذِيذُ فَأَيْنَ الطَّبَائِعُ وَأَجْنَاسُهَا وَأَيْنَ الفلاسفة وأناسها وهل في قدرة الطبيعة أن تتقن هذا الإتقان البديع أو ترتب هذا الترتيب العجيب؟ كلا، لا يتم ذلك في العقول إلا لحي عالم قدير مريد، فسبحان من له من في كل شيء آية بداية ونهاية. يا سلام. What does that mean? Basically talking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets the water, instead of going down through the earth and letting the gravity basically absorb it, but basically created a way for it to get absorbed into the trunk, into the stem, into the, well, before that, into basically the roots, and how that the roots would pull it and then take it, and then it goes all the way up into basically the different parts of the tree. And he was talking about how it ends up from being from water to later developing the different leaves, and then later it would basically start developing into making it a fruit, basically having a body that would be filled with nutrients and beautiful tree, beautiful flowers, and how every single one would have its own fruit with new taste, and therefore recognizing how is it with all these different, of course, these different people having different tastes, having just different attitudes, etc. And أين الفلاسفة وأناسها, where the philosophers and their people to explain all of this. So when he talks about philosophers, he's not literally talking about the philosophers that we have today as a department of philosophy. because at the time, philosophy was not the study of thought. At the time, philosophy included mathematics, included biology, included chemistry, included physics, included medicine. So that was all considered as falsafa. So just to make sure that we all understand, when he was talking about philosophy, he wasn't talking about philosophy that we would know today in studying thought and postmodernism and studying Kant and John Locke and David Hume. No, he's talking about those that field of studying science that at the time was called philosophy. All right. And he said, is nature capable of creating such sophisticated creation and give it in this intricate and detailed creation, and even put everything in such a magnificent organization and magnificent way to function? Absolutely not. No mind is capable of pondering or even being able to fathom the magnificent creation, but it is a reflection of a great alim, qadir, murid. Is a reflection of one that is all-knowing, one that is all-capable, and one that is basically the one to put things in function and to make the order. So therefore, glory be unto the one that has in each and every single matter that he had created a sign, a beginning and an end, for us to also see the magnificence of the Lord Almighty. And certainly, when we talked about this ayah and the relationship with the ayah before it, when of course the kuffar had made up a blasphemy and accused basically of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving somehow the different idols the inspiration, or at least the people to make up these idols to reflect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at least they considered that it inspires them to relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore they created their own legislation, their own ritual on how to relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they considered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being remote. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, well, you see, in each and every single thing that you see, that's a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether we're speaking about trees growing upwards, or trees going basically vertically or horizontally, or trees basically and how they function, and all the different tastes and all the different forces that you would see in just a plant, that there are different signs and different things that you can reflect upon to see the magnificence of the Lord Almighty. In other words, if you wanted to see something that would be a better inspiration, or what would probably, instead of making these idols, to say that they reflect and that it's an inspiration to getting closer to God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, well, you just look at the trees, you just look at the things around you right there. That even has a bigger reflection and a bigger inspiration for you to see. But certainly you're not going to be worshiping the plants. You're not going to be worshiping the things in nature, or at least whether those that speaking to those that are worshiping the idols or other things, that this is a sign, not necessarily that the tree is the creator, but this is a sign that the tree was created, and this magnificent creation was reflecting a magnificent creator. So this in order to tell us, well, the one that has the power to create is the one that, and the only one that has the right to legislate. Okay, now let's continue right there. There's one point that he basically said this one. Let's look at, where was it? I read it somewhere else and I couldn't read it here. Okay, I'll tell you what he said. And when he looked at كُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ إِذَا أَثْمَرَ وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. Al-Qurtubi said, well, what you see when it says كُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ, eat from its fruit, and then آتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, and give its right on the day the day that you would harvest it, basically donate from it, he said that is in order to let us know that recognizing the ni'mah and recognizing the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given you actually comes prior to the obligations that you would be obligated to do. Keep this one in mind. In ni'mah comes first and then the obligation. So what is that supposed to let us know? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created so many ni'am, so many different bounties that you may not even realize, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked you to be thankful for that ni'mah, asked you to be thankful for them. And that's one thing. When you look at the different things, the relationship between you, for example, and your children, let them know that the amount that you had invested in their life, and the amount, it's not to brag about it, but it's to let them be thankful. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had talked to them and mentioned in the ayah, حملته أمه وهلا ووضعته حملته أمه وهنا, and or حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها, that his mother carried him, or basically was pregnant with him in lots of kurha, in other words, lots of hardship and lots of tension and lots of pain, ووضعته كرها, and even had her son or her daughter in lots of pain. So that's basically to let us know what? To let us know that we're supposed to be here bragging to our children? No, it's not bragging to our children. It's basically letting them recognize what they had forgotten. It's bringing it to their attention that there's something that you must recognize, that the good things that you are right now having is a result of what your parents had invested in you. They invested whether in school or whether invested in the home, in stability in the home, and whatever you are learning today. All of that is basically a result of what your parents had invested in you, and therefore to be thankful. And to be thankful comes in different ways. Just keep that one in mind. To be thankful comes in different ways. In this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning one method of being thankful. He said, "Atu haqqahu yawma hasade." In order to be thankful, certainly you can say Alhamdulillah. Another method of being thankful is to basically pay the cost. Pay the cost, in other words, donate on behalf of what you basically had gotten, what you basically had been given in terms of blessings, that you donate. You give for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You give for the cause of what you were given. So what do? آتوا حقه يوم حصاده. But here's one thing. When you look at آتوا حقه يوم حصاده, it's the ayah that we left off last time. He said, اختلف الناس في تفسير هذا الحق ما هو؟ فقال أنس بن مالك وابن عباس وطاووس والحسن وابن زيد وابن الحنفية والضحاك وسعيد بن المسيب هي الزكاة المفروضة العشر ونصف العشر. That's the first opinion. But hold on. What are the opinions in regards to zakat for the different things that we basically would have in regards to zakat on fruits, vegetables, and basically the variant things that we would have right there? So here's the thing. When you look at zakat, all right, we definitely know that it is obligatory, and in fact, one of the different arkan, one of the different pillars in Islam. There's no question about that. But when it comes to fruits and vegetables, there are 4 different opinions in regards to that. Let's look at those 4 different opinions in order to make sure that we basically have those opinions in place. Number 1, you've got the Hanafi school. So the Hanafi school considered that zakah
is due on everything that grows from earth. And what is their evidence? Well, their evidence was this ayah. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. The Malikis, on the other hand, they basically regarded that no, not everything is basically zakat eligible, and only the things that would be measured and stored. So what do you mean by measured and stored? They said, well, it has to be something that we can weigh. And two, it has to be something that can be stored. So we're talking about things like raisins, things like dates, things like grains. Those are the things that can be zakat eligible. For the Shafi'is, they basically had the same opinion as the Malikis, but then they also said it has to be edible. So if we're talking about probably things that people do not eat, they said, well, no, that can't be zakat eligible just because we may be using that plant perhaps maybe for different things, perhaps even as a something for fertilization or anything like that. That's not edible. It has to be edible according to them. So in other words, we're speaking about things that can be dried. So that's an extra thing. So basically, the Shafi'is agree with the Malikis that it has to be something that is stored, and it has to be something that is measured and measurable, and something that is edible. That's the extra thing that Shafi'is had basically considered. So things like vegetables, fruits, if they're not going to be dried, you can't dry them, you can't store them, then there's no zakat on them. The Hanbali, they basically had the same as the Shafi'i and the Maliki and considered edible, measurable, and storable. So in other words, perishable fruits and produce, those are not to be basically paid in zakat. But here's one thing. When you look at zakat, we're going to consider the method of irrigation. How is the irrigation process happening? So there's the il-ushur. It would, if the water is basically naturally irrigated through rain, river, springs, etc., then there's basically 1/10 of those crops is what you're going to be putting in terms of donation, okay, on basically based on the contract, the distribution as what Malikis and Hanafis had said. But if it was artificially watered, then in that situation it would be 5%, or what would be called nisf al-ushur, half the tenth, with basically 5% of that stuff is going to be basically put in donation, 5% of it. 7.5% if it was both natural and artificial watering basically happening. So why did they actually go in differences of opinions anyways? And why did they get into this whole thing? And why not just consider that there's no zakah on it, and that's basically it? So let's see. المذهب الحنفي, well, was it just المذهب الحنفي? You want to remember every single madhab, this is extremely important to keep in mind, every single madhab basically goes back to a certain Sahabi that taught it. Okay, so there would be, let's say, al-Madhab al-Hanafi, whether you have Ibn Abbas or you have Ibn Mas'ud, all right, you have al-Madhab al-Maliki, Ibn Umar, you will have different scholars for, let's say, different Sahaba scholars for different madhab, and then they would become the main teachers, the main inspirers, the main ones to basically guide into that teaching. And of course, the Sahaba got it from the Prophet ﷺ, all right? But when you look at the madhab itself, even the method, so we're talking about the way that the madhab is derived in how do I understand the resources, hadith, Quran, how do I understand these resources? How do I derive the rulings? What are the hadith that they had learned? That's basically going to be dependent a lot on the Sahabi that taught that the main
let's call them the main figures within those madhab. So in madhab al-Hanafi, you could say, well, this wasn't just their own opinion, but there were a number of different Sahaba. You got Anas ibn Malik, you got Abdullah ibn Abbas. They also said this. As for Tawus al-Hasan ibn Zayd ibn al-Hanafiyyah, Dhahak, Sa'id ibn Sa'id, those were all tabi'een. Okay, what did they say? And even Madhab al-Hanafi, they also said the same. They basically said there is zakah to be paid, whether it's perishable, whether it's edible, whether it is something that is something that is measurable. At the end, everything would be considered going and falling into this statement and pay what it's due on the day of its harvest. They said, we're going to take this statement in the comprehensive statement that it was in, and we're going to consider that every single thing that basically is produced and we harvest it, we benefit from it, edible or not, we're basically going to consider that you would have to have the duty to basically pay in donation, an amount in donation. Okay, so you've got some of the scholars basically considered that, and certainly other scholars had basically said, well, no, they're when we're talking about other donations, other scholars, they considered that no, atu haqqaha yawma hasadihi is not necessarily referring to zakat per se, and consider that this is referring to just a general donation and not zakat. Why not? Why would you say that this was a general donation? What's the difference between a general donation and a zakat? A zakat is obligatory. A zakat is a pillar. That's something that you have no option but to pay. A donation is basically voluntary. It's an extra thing that you would like to pay. So this ayah, according to those scholars that consider that this is not related to zakah, but related to just a general donation, here's their evidence. They said, well, zakah was not obligatory until the time that the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina. And this surah was actually a Meccan surah. So therefore, they considered that this is just speaking about giving donations and not necessarily zakah. It's quite interesting. Okay. The other thing is that you had other scholars, they basically said, well, if with the same opinion, if you harvest and you had poor people coming to you, then in that situation, you're basically going to give them, whether we're talking about we're talking about the wheat grind, or we're talking about the grains, or we're talking about even, look at this one. وإذا جذذت فألق لهم من الشماريخ وإذا درسته ودسته وذريته فاطرح لهم منه وإذا عرفت كيله فأخرج منه زكاته. يا سلام. He said إذا حصدت فحضرك المساكين فاطرح لهم من السنبل وإذا جذذت فألق لهم من الشماريخ وإذا درسته ودسته وذريته فاطرح لهم منه. Okay, what does that mean? If you harvest and you have the poor people coming over, then give them from the actual wheat. So let's say you had those wheat sticks basically right there. Well, give them from the wheat sticks. You don't have to wait. Just give them from that. And if you basically had collected it and you had, let's say, shamarikh are basically the barks and also like the different things that come out of the tree. Well, give them whatever you have. Give them from whatever you have, whether you're talking about barks, you're talking about leaves, you're talking about perhaps the different petals. Give them from the petals if that's what you have. Give them from the barks, give them the whatever you have. And if you were to, let's say, grind it, well, give them from whatever you had basically grinded. Let's say you make it into a juice, give them from the juice. You made it into, who knows, some kind of a perhaps maybe some kind of a jam, give them from the jam, whatever you're making. All right. And if you knew its amount and its weight, then you're going to basically take out the do zakat for it. This is really important. You just keep that one in mind. In other words, whatever you have, you got to share. Whether if you have the juice of it, you've got the fruit, you've got the petals, you've got the barks, you've got the tree, whatever it is. Same thing with your clothes. But here's one thing. It's important to mention that the ayat would actually give us the different levels of what it means to be good. I'll give you an example. Remember when we talked about in Surah An-Nur, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Prophet, tells us about when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Sayyidah Aisha was talked about in that hadith al-ifk, and then certainly there was Mistah ibn Uthatha, who basically was given money from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and then he talked about Sayyidah Aisha and was involved in this whole rumor, in spreading the rumor. That's when, even though Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is the one that's funding him, he was so poor that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was funding him. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq gets so furious and basically makes an oath that he would not pay him and donate for him any longer because he was involved in talking about his own daughter. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ. And of course, what is that ayah saying? Well, there is a general default ruling. If somebody harms me, I would have the right to basically retaliate in the same direction that they had harmed me in. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, well, that would, Abu Bakr, that would be different when it comes to you. You're from ulul fadl. You're from the people that are the top 10 people to enter Jannah. You don't fall within the category of retaliating in the same direction because you would give in a different way. And, the other day someone asked me, well, is it permissible for me to make the dua against the person that harmed me? And I said, yes, it is permissible. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, and probably make a dua against them for harming you. But it depends on which level you want to be aiming at. What and who do you want to be a part of? If you want to be part of just a plain Muslim, I'll say, yeah, sure, you could do that. Someone harmed you and you want to make the dua, against them and let them get harmed in the same way that they had harmed you. You can definitely do that. You have the right to do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also telling you that there are other ones that basically go farther than that, and those are ulul fadl. Ulul fadl, no, they work differently. Why? Because the ayah in that same ayah, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Do you not love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive you, would forgive you, and you want to be part of those people? Yes. So if you're wanting to be the top people, then you work differently. So it depends on where you are. Is it permissible? Yeah, sure, it is. But if you're aiming high, you would do things differently because you would forgive. Why should I forgive? He harmed me, she harmed me, etc. Because you are seeking the payback not from that person. You're seeking the payback from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're seeking the payback from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore you are doing what would basically be seen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not necessarily seen by that person. That person is so evil that they won't even recognize you doing any favor or any good in return for the harm that they had committed. In fact, they might actually take advantage of it. And then in that situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, well, you live up to that level in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ever give you, because you're seeking the payback not from that person, but from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I'm not asking you to be a person that gets stepped on and being a doormat. Okay. And this is why it's important to recognize, when do you practice that? Is this person stopping? Is this person basically not getting carried away with harming you? Because you have to protect yourself from harm. But just wanted to let you know that there are different levels. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting us know that when you're talking about hate, you're talking about anger, it eats up the person before in other words, the person himself, before even eating up the other person. In fact, they might not even know your anger. The anger itself is within you, but you're probably getting the blood pressure, the sugar level gone wrong, the anxiety and all that, all that cortisol and whatever they call it, and everything's just going, is basically harming you. All that anger is harming you. They're probably just living their life. Sugar level is all fine, and probably their blood pressure level is all fine, but your heart is taking it all up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically letting you know that, if you forgive, you're the first one to basically get the gain. Why? Because you're letting it go, and you're letting this hard pressure and this anger and all of those hard feelings get out of you. And once they come out of you, you're basically then free from all that pressure that's eating you up and making you boil and making your heart and your anxiety and your brain and your blood pressure and the list goes on and on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, let go and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deal with it, rather than letting this anger burn you before burning them. It's a different level. Okay, let's see the third opinion. Like we said earlier, they basically said that this was abrogated with zakat. Wait a minute. What do you mean abrogated with zakat? So before, when they were in Mecca, they were ordered atu haqqahu yawma hasadih. That's the third opinion, okay? To give donation, basically from whatever they harvest. But it isn't until later, so that's what they were saying. Mansukh bizakah. They said this is abrogated, and therefore zakah is what is obligatory. And not necessarily just giving just a general donation. And they said this surah is a Meccan surah, and the ayah of zakah was only revealed in Medina. What was that ayah? خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً. Take a donation. Wasn't for the Prophet ﷺ. It was to be distributed into 8 different categories. We'll talk about that later. Okay. And then the ayah said, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And perform the prayer and give zakah. And certainly you could say that different scholars had differences of opinions, and some actually said, well, it was abrogated by the ahadith that basically talked about, remember the 10% and the 5%, depending on the form of irrigation. 10% would be if it was irrigated naturally, 5% would be if it was irrigated basically with let's say our own irrigation, and we're basically using it, and basically machine irrigation, all of that. Okay, so at the end of the day, some scholars, they debated that one. Let's see, what is the evidence in all of this? Abu Hanifa, I want to look at this one. It's quite interesting, even though you want to keep in mind that al-Qurtubi is Maliki. Let's just say, yes, there are different opinions. We just said 3 different opinions. We said the Hanafis, they said you give zakah for all the fruits, vegetables, etc., regardless of it being edible, regardless of it being stored in something that is perishable or not, regardless of that. Malikis, they basically said, no, we're going to say it has to be edible. It has to, it has to be something that is weighted. It has to be something that is stored. the Shafi'is, they added edible to the previous Maliki condition, and you had the Hanbalis, they basically agreed with them, but then they added one more condition. And what was that condition? They basically had said, well, it has to be one basically storable, measurable, edible. So basically the same opinion as Shafi'i and Maliki, really, not any different. Okay, so let's continue right there. Let's say, so when we look at al-Hanafi, what was their evidence? They basically had said, well, in the general words, in the Prophet ﷺ's general words, he said, فيما سقط السماء العشر وفيما سقي بنضح أو دالية نصف العشر. The Prophet ﷺ had said in the general hadith, let's look at this one. Number 3, is that, well, this one right there. So you got Ibn Abi Shayba and Tafseer al-Qurtubi. What was that quote? Whatever was irrigated through basically natural irrigation, as-sama, that's natural irrigation, heavens, okay, so natural irrigation, it's going to be basically the amount of zakat due on it is 10% of basically of whatever they have in production. And what was irrigated, binadh. What is binadh? In nadh means we're talking about machinery irrigation. We're talking about we needed to bring about this water. We needed to probably, get tap water or probably different types of waters in order to irrigate all of this. He said, and that would be nisf al-ushr. That would be 5%. Okay, so that's what they basically considered. They said this is what in general, in the comprehensive statement right there, and plus, okay, and plus the ayah says, وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, and give it what is due upon it on the day of its harvest. Let's see, Abu Yusuf. Who's Abu Yusuf and why are they bring Abu Yusuf up? So Abu Yusuf, his name is Yaqub ibn Ibrahim. Yaqub ibn Ibrahim was one of the very smart students of Abu Yusuf. So this young boy who would come in, thought I'd listen to this guy, okay? Young boy, his mom would send him to buy some things or probably help her, do some things. And then Abu Yusuf, who's Yaqub ibn Ibrahim, he would see Abu Hanifa giving the lectures and the halaqas and all of that, and then Abu Yusuf would sneak his way to go to Abu Hanifa's classes. So his mother would come over searching for her son, and she would say that he was sneaking to Abu Hanifa's class. So Abu Hanifa would see that his mother was coming in with a stick and basically beating him. What did I tell you to do? Why aren't you lacking discipline? This is what I told you to do. And you keep sneaking to those lectures. And that's when Abu Hanifa had seen the dedication that Yaqub ibn Ibrahim had to learning, even though he was just a young boy. So Abu Hanifa said, keep that boy and I will pay for like a helper and to do the job of Yaqub ibn Ibrahim. Abu Hanifa was a very rich man. He was actually the one to pay for his students. So the students would join the class and Abu Hanifa would basically pay them. So it wasn't the other way around. They weren't paying tuition. No, he was paying them for joining the classes. He was paying them for joining the classes. I wish I could do that. I don't have the money to pay you, ladies.
Gyms of life do that, but through donor, not your.
Allah يبارك فيهم. The donors are the ones.
Ameen. يعني you're doing same Abu Hanifa, mashallah. Allah bless.
Allah يبارك فيهم. Allah يبارك فيهم for those donors that basically made this possible. And Allah يبارك فيهم. When you would have somebody come over and basically say, you know what? I'm funding for a whole year. I'm funding for 2 years or something like that. You would be really surprised who would actually be the donor, by the way.
Yeah,
People you would never expect. أقسم بالله العظيم. the people that donate are people that you would never expect. Absolutely never expect. You would never think that this person even cares about ilm, cares about teaching Islam, cares about that, and they'll be here to
Allah
my
use them.
set of donations.
Allah use them, subhanallah.
You know, that's how I learned not to judge. Uqsim billahi al-azim.
Allahu Akbar.
Do not judge.
Allah.
You would be thinking that this person lacks deen, or this person doesn't really care about Islam, doesn't really care about teaching. You know, they'll be telling you, know, I'm the last person to learn, the last person to memorize Quran, the last person to, you know, have the patience and sit in a class, but all I could do is donate this much amount of money. It's a big amount of money. That's all I could do. At least I'll donate to make that possible for others to attend the class. And hopefully, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward those that are donating in those numbers to basically, for each and every single person coming in to listen to the class, to hear even the online classes and all of that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward those people that donate for Gems of Light, reward them with a tremendous rewards, and give them on behalf of every single attendee, on behalf of what we would deliver and all that. Basically, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the reward for it. You know, they will get the reward probably more than all of us.
MashaAllah. Is that what we call it, كفالة طالب علم?
It is. It's basically fi sabilillah.
Yeah, and they take same ajr, but they can't memorize, can't attend the classes, but they can share by money. MashaAllah.
Absolutely. They're like, that's all we could do. We could just
MashaAllah. Is it zakatable? Gems of Light?
There are differences of opinions between scholars, but wallahu alam, it is zakat eligible. And we had Ibn Fawzan, we got a number of different scholars that actually considered that for institutions of talab al-ilm, that they are zakat eligible, and even for talab al-ilm that cannot afford, let's say, to pay off their college degrees or etc., that it would be zakat eligible.
There are one or two of the 8 people that Ahlul Zakah, the student, when they can't afford money.
We're talking about fi sabilillah, absolutely.
Yeah, mashallah.
Okay, let's see what Abu Yusuf right there. So, you know, that's where we stopped at. Hopefully one day I'll be a millionaire and probably fund those that would attend and say, hey, you know, I'll be
عند الله غنية عند الله.
You never know. You know, I wonder if I really had $1 million. I don't know what I would do with it, to be honest. You know, my daughter, I don't know, she's always watching these videos for billionaires and how they became billionaires. I don't know why, but that'd be the last thing I would watch. But anyhow, she would always
maybe
we would be walking down the road, and we kind of live in a classy area here, and she would be like, Mom, so which one you want to buy? And I would be like, what? And she's like, just tell me, just point at the house that you want to buy. I'm like, you know, looking at one of the best houses. I'm like, that one right there. She's like, yep, that's the one that I want to get you. I'm like, okay, whatever.
بيت في الجنة.
Exactly, that's the one I'm going to buy you. I'm like, whatever. You know, I personally, subhanallah, I mean, when you look at money, really, you know, if you look at how much can you get, I mean, how much can you get of furniture? How much can you get? You can only sleep on one bed. You could only eat one bowl of food. One bowl. There's an amount. But the most important thing about money, wallahi, the most important thing is الغنى عن مد اليد للناس.
أيوة الناس.
The most important thing about money
اللهم
is not to need others to support you.
اللهم اجعل عيش أمتي كفاف. As I said,
Wallahi, this is the most important thing about money, is not to need other people to support you, because there's nothing worse than feeling humiliated and to reach out to people to say, can you support? Can you help? I need this. Or even, and the most important thing about health is to be able to fulfill your own needs, to be able to get up, fix yourself the food, clean yourself by yourself, go to the bathroom without needing support, get up and walk and not needing anybody to support you, to scratch, to eat, to drink, to move, to get your own stuff without needing anybody to be with you. Wallahi, there is nothing worse than needing people to be there for you.
Subhanallah, subhanallah.
That's
Dr. البوطي رحمه الله, he was our like dean, عمدة, عميد في الجامعة في سوريا.
right.
Never have a car, only by bus. By bus. And the same suit, he will have it all years. Subhanallah.
Allah yarhamu ya Rabbi. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him, ya Rabbi.
نعم
For
نعم
you know, that still, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah yarhamu. By the way, al-Buti was my professor's professor.
ما شاء الله.
Yeah. Dr. Adib Hurani, Allah yarhamu ya Rabbi. He was his professor. So because my professor used to go all the way from Syria to Lebanon to Al-Qahira, and basically just you know, within the same week, just these 3 places, and that was in the 60s. And subhanallah, I mean, Allah yarhamu ya Rabbi, one of my favorite professors. Allah
He was my doctor in شو اسمه السيرة.
Sir,
أصول
oh yeah,
السيرة
for fiqh
أصول
sunnah.
السيرة.
Right, fiqh sunnah. That was one of my favorite books in fiqh
Yeah.
sunnah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus with the something about like
Absolutely well
عقيدة.
written.
Oh,
Yeah,
ما شاء الله.
absolutely well written. Absolutely well written. How tall was he?
Yeah, medium, يعني taller than me.
I like that one. Taller than me.
And his tarbush make him a little bit.
You know, he seemed like a really short person. You know, on camera at least, he seemed like a really short. I don't know if that was age, because
not very
remember,
short.
he died at 90-some years old.
Yeah,
So,
but not very short, but slim and same weight all time, and
okay,
very serious, very serious.
very serious. Okay.
أصول الفقه.
Yeah, he was always at butting heads with al-Albani, always butting heads with al-Albani.
Right. And he used to explain the حكم أبي العطاء السكندري.
Allah.
Yeah.
Allah,
Oh.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite sad that not many are learning Abil Ata al-Secondari's wisdoms, and those in mainly you could see that the focus on it is always that, oh, it's Sufi and that's basically it, therefore we're just going to disregard it, which is really sad, because there's a lot to learn from that. There's a lot to discipline into that. And Abu al-Ata al-Secondari, it's really important to bring that into light. And I think there's this guy, Shanqiti something. He actually uses his quotes often. Something, what is it? Mukhtar? I don't know, forgot what his name was.
Yeah, Mukhtar Shanqiti هذا.
Is that
Sufi?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, of course, because when
you look because at he tastes the Abu al-Ata secondary.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to Abu Yusuf. So this is Abu Yusuf. He said, إِلَّا الْحَطَبَ وَالْحَشِيشَ وَالْقَصَبَ وَالتِّبْنِ وَالسَّعْفِ وَقَصَبَ الذَّرِيرَ وَقَصَبَ السُّكَّرِ. What was he saying? Well, basically, now Abu Yusuf, I guess a little bit going away from his sheikh. And of course, this is Abu Yusuf. He also had his own fiqh as well. He didn't necessarily have his own madhab per se, but he differed on a lot of different issues from Abu Hanifa. Let's see what he said. He said, illa al-hatab. So except we're talking about logs basically used for fire, or even we're talking about grass, or we're talking about tibin. Tibin is basically, it's not edible. It's basically used as more of food for animals. So that's basically food for animals. And we're talking about same thing, just different plants that you would get basically that is not edible. Okay. And he was even talking about qasab al-sukkar. We're talking about the sugar cane. I mean, sugar canes.
Yeah, sugar cane.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't know how they use
They-
it. I know Egyptians would actually, and I see Malaysians here as well, they would get the sugar cane and put it into this machine, and then it would squeeze some kind of a sweet,
Right. Juice.
yeah, some kind of a sweet juice. I don't know. I didn't want to taste it. I guess I'm just not used to it.
It's very delicious.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I
Yeah.
should try it sometime. And I just didn't want to try something. As a Palestinian, I'm not used to seeing this, but I'm like, oh, that's gonna be like literally like putting, I don't know, sugar in water. And they told me no, but I don't know, my brain is not is not comprehending it yet. It's like,
Right. It's
so
sugar,
this is
but sugary,
sugar.
but
Does that mean it's too sweet?
not too much sweet, and it's like public drink juice in Egypt.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Same thing here in Malaysia. They actually use that quite often, like like a sugar cane. And I don't know what they exactly do with it, but yeah, I could see that they would
It's
use
same
that.
like the coconut water,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean,
more sweet.
Malaysians are really big. In fact, in Malaysia, there are certain, they look like palm trees. They have their own dates. It's completely different than the Middle Eastern palm trees. They look very beautiful, way shorter, but they look like palm trees, but they're actually carrying not palms. They're not dates. They're carrying something else. I don't really, they told me the name and I tasted it. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad, but I think I prefer my Middle Eastern dates, but it wasn't too bad. It's quite interesting. Okay, I don't know what it's called though. They had a name for it. I'm not, I'm still learning. Okay, let's see. Abu Umar, he said, look at this. Who's Abu Umar? Abu Umar is one of the Maliki scholars. His name is ابن عبد البر. He said لا خلاف بين العلماء فيما علمت أن الزكاة واجبة في الحنطة والشعير والتمر والزبيب. Okay, so this is a good basis. He said, I do not know any differences of opinions between scholars that zakah is obligatory on wheat, barley, on dates, and on raisins. Okay. And in fact, some scholars said there's no zakah on anything else. Let's do it again. We're talking about wheat. We're talking about barley. We're talking about dates. We're talking about raisins. Okay. And some scholars said zakah is only in those. In other words, anything else, any other fruits, vegetables, produce, there's no zakah on them. And let's see how many scholars actually said that. You got Al-Hasan, Ibn Sirin, Al-Sha'bi, and Al-Kufiyin. Kufiyin, basically, okay. From Al-Kufiyin, Ibn Abi Layla, Thawri, Al-Hasan, Ibn Salih, Ibn Al-Mubarak, Yahya ibn Adam, and Abu Ubaid. Abu Ubaid said that too, okay. And he said it was also narrated upon Abu Musa. Abu Musa meaning Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Abdullah ibn Qais. What did he say? That the Prophet ﷺ had basically said, that made it exclusive, that there's no zakah except on those. And they would say that, well, that was the madhab of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, that zakah would only be on wheat, barley, dates, and raisins. Okay, let's see. Malik, on the other hand, they basically said is zakah would be obligatory on everything that is muqtatin wa muddakhar. What is muqtat? Muqtat meaning you eat it. And something that is muddakhar, something that can be stored. And that's the same thing that Shafi'i had said. Let's see, Shafi'i had also said only if something that can be dried, can be stored, is edible. Those are the only things that that is basically zakat eligible. But considered that zaytun or olives cannot be zakat eligible because he considered it as idam. What is idam? Idam meaning like a dip. As a dip, you consider that, no, this is a dip. This isn't to be eaten, but this is to be edible. This is to be as a dip. It's quite interesting. I mean, we make olives and we put them in lemon and salt, and sometimes we would add a vinegar, right? And you could put jalapenos in there, and then we would store it and they would ripen, and that's how we use our olives, at least in Palestine. So I wonder if they actually use the same thing, because he's just saying that it's only as a dip. So he's looking at it as if it's only like an oil. It's quite interesting because they don't eat it. Let's say, well, that's not what all scholars would agree on, but it's quite interesting that they didn't use that method of, what is that called when you actually store the olives in the way that I said it? I think Spanish olives are done differently, but anyhow. Okay, let's see. Imam Ahmad, it basically said that his zakah is in everything that Abu Hanifa had said if it was to be weighed. What do you mean weighed? I mean, we can weigh everything. Well, this is talking about to be put in bags, to be stored, to be basically put as a bulk. Okay, and that's why he basically considered that in almonds, since we can weigh it, but he didn't consider it for walnuts because you would count it. It's quite interesting. You would count the walnuts, but not weigh the walnuts. I mean, it's completely different during our time. You weigh the walnuts, and you can weigh it, and I mean, it's quite interesting how they differentiated. But you could see that there's a lot of culture in this, right? Because I mean, why can you weigh almonds, but you can't weigh walnuts? Seriously? Maybe during their time that wasn't the case. Remember, the method of how things are sold and how things are stored is different. Just keeping that one in mind. You could say that, he said that, like a Shafi'i right there, he said that was more of a dip. And here, they basically said, that walnuts are basically to be sold in the count and not in the weight. Versus, you could say ilaus, versus almonds, he considered that, no, that's in weight and not in count. So what's the difference? Well, they basically look at it, ليس فيما دون 5 أوسق من تمر أو حب صدقة. That there's no zakah on what is less than 5 أوسق. Okay, so what are we talking about 5 أوسق? Okay, so let's look at 5 أوسق. In today's value, or in today's unit. All right, let's see 5 أوسق. I'm asking right there. 5 أوسق is basically الوسق is 60 sa, and then so that's 612 kilograms. 612 kilograms is basically the amount that if you were to have this amount of it, then that's when it would be zakat eligible. 600 and what did we say? What did we just say? 612 or 653. So between 612 and 653 kilograms in order to say that something is zakat eligible. So if it is less than that, then it would not be zakat eligible. In other words, it would be just a guess for yourself. If you want to give in donation, that's okay.
It means nisab.
Right, that's a nisab, exactly. Of course, in nisab, for zakat is for the zuru' and thimar, basically. 612 to 653 kilograms and above. So that's the limit. You have more than that, then you would have to basically give zakat. According, of course, to the different opinions between scholars right there. Are we talking about the substance, or are we talking about weight? What are we exactly talking about? Just wanted to lay out those differences of opinions. But I want you to look at this one. This I absolutely love. He said, وإلى هذا مال ابن العربي في أحكامه فقال وأما أبو حنيفة فجعل الآية مرآته فأبصر الحق وأخذ يعضد مذهب الحنفي ويقويه وقال في كتاب القبس بما عليه الإمام مالك بن أنس فقال قال الله تعالى والزيتون والرمان متشابه وغير متشابه إن right there واختلف الناس في وجوب الزكاة في جميع ما تضمنته أو بعض تضمنته أو بعضه وقد بينا ذلك في الأحكام. Okay, so what is he saying? I want you to look at this one. This is beautiful. He said, that's the opinion that Ibn al-Arabi, who's also Maliki, في أحكامه in his book. Ibn al-Arabi has a book. It's in like 5 volumes. It's called Ahkam al-Quran. Okay, and he had basically chosen and regarded that opinion that is to pay zakah on that on the whatever is basically harvested, that is the opinion that is chosen. Even though Ibn al-Arabi was Maliki, but he didn't choose the Maliki opinion on regards of the different produce and different plants, and instead he actually had adopted Abu Hanifa's opinion, and he said the quote فَجَعَلَ الْآيَةَ مِرْآتَهُ فَأَبْصَرَ الْحَقَّ. He had used and let the ayah be the lens that he sees through, and the ayah, basically the Quran, be the lens that he would see through, and he was capable of seeing truth. Absolutely love it. And I think I quoted this one so many times. Just absolutely loved it. You know, let the Quran be the lens you see through in order to see truth. And he said, and he was supporting basically the Hanafi madhab in that regards and bringing in the evidence. And even in his book Al-Qabas, he basically had mentioned basically how the different Malikis and their opinions, but of course he still supported the Hanafi opinion in that regards. Now this is extremely important because when you speak about differences of opinions between scholars, it's important to keep in mind that some scholars are really fanatic about their madhab and other scholars are not fanatic about their madhab. Some scholars are so fanatic about their madhab that even if they are to come across a hadith that's not authentic, they're willing to continue and support and use that and basically defend that opinion, even if the evidences are not even supporting it, but they're just so fanatic about the madhab that they cannot even see beyond. You know, I'll give an example for a scholar. His name was al-Jassas, a great Hanafi scholar. He has a book. It's in 4 volumes. It's called Ahkam al-Quran. Just like Ibn al-Arabi has Ahkam al-Quran, al-Jassas also has a 4-volume tafsir. It's called Ahkam al-Quran. And he was just taking and being selecting the ayat that relate to legislation. So basically just the ayat that relate to legislation. That's why it's in 3 to 4 volumes. Okay, or 4 volumes actually, not 3. Okay, but he was really fanatic about his madhab, which is madhab Hanafi. I know sometimes I realize, you know what his name means? That's not his name. It just also is not his name. That was his profession. What he was known for that. What is the profession that he would do? El-Jassas basically means clay, the person that does clay. And he used to do clay for the homes, and that was his job. That was his job. So, you know, that was his job, that he basically would I guess work, and that was his income. That was his source of income, and which is basically just making clay for the houses. That was it. And you could see sometimes, you know, some scholars actually said that the profession that you do, it reflects on you. So perhaps maybe the clay and, you know, being so stiff on it, maybe, I mean, you know, he's a great scholar, definitely, there's no doubt about that. A great scholar, but definitely was not too flexible in regards to adopting or even reviewing the different madhahib. But you had other scholars that were really flexible, just like Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi was extremely flexible, and even if he was still Maliki madhab, okay? But he was very flexible and was not fanatic about his madhab, and served al-madhab al-Maliki in tremendous ways in a number of different books. Okay, let's see. And of course, you could say that the ayah, القرطبي said, قلت هذا وإن لم يذكره في الأحكام هو الصحيح في المسألة وأن الخضروات ليس فيها شيء. والقرطبي, even though he is Maliki madhab, okay, but even though he basically did praise and endorse Ibn al-Arabi for supporting the Hanafi opinion, but then at the end, he didn't necessarily adopt it. And he said, as a matter of fact, what is closer to the preponderant opinion is that in regards to fruits and vegetables, there's no zakat on it. And he said the scholars had differences of opinions on whether it is abrogated or whether this is the final statement, muhkama that is, or whether this ayah was encouraging those to basically give zakah, making it voluntary and not necessarily obligatory. Okay, let's see. And certainly, I'm not going to go into all those details. I'm just, just wanting to be I guess pick on those that let's see, what did he say right there? He said بل القاطع المعلوم ما ذكره ابن بكير في أحكامه أن الكوفة افتتحت بعد موت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعد استقرار الأحكام بالمدينة، أفيجوز أن يتوهم متوهم أو من له أدنى بصيرة أن تكون شريعة مثل هذه عطلت فلم يعمل بها في دار الهجرة ومستقر الوحي ولا في خلافة أبي بكر حتى عمل بذلك الكوفيون، إن هذه لمصيبة فيما ظن هذا وقال به. Okay, let's see, what is he saying? He said, well, the irony, okay, this is what he's basically saying. He said, the irony is that Al-Kufa was not conquered by the Muslims except until after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. And after all the different rulings had already been established fully in Medina. He said, is it possible that anybody would think, and anybody with the slightest amount of intelligence would think that throughout this time that Sharia was not applied in Medina, even though it was already established there? And then in Medina, that's where the Wahy was sent, that's where Khilafat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was there, was in, and then it isn't until the people in Al-Kufa / Al-Iraq would actually then discover that, oh, we're supposed to be paying zakat on fruits and vegetables and all of that. He said that would be a calamity to think that Al-Kufa is then coming to teach us basically our Islam when Islam was already established in Medina, and they were not doing zakah on all the different fruits and vegetables, but they were doing it on those 4 items: the wheat, the barley, the dates, and the raisins. All right, so let's say, he said, and I had replied, that is al-Qurtubi, and from the ayah, يا أيها الرسول بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O Prophet of Allah, deliver what was revealed upon you, and if you have not, then you did not deliver the message. And he said, أتراه يكتم شيئا أمر بتبليغه أو ببيانته? Was he actually hiding something? Absolutely not. حاشاه عن ذلك. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. Today I perfected your religion, completed the religion, and completed my blessings upon you. And from the day
He said, and from the day that Islam was complete, the Prophet ﷺ was never stated that he had taken upon any produce any zakah. Look at that one. He said, we don't have anything that proves that. It's quite interesting. Why am I saying the details of all of this? I want you to get a taste of fiqh, how they would debate the evidence, and how one matter can have so many different arguments between scholars, and that it's not, oh, this is what I think. I want you to see deep inside the fiqh and how they would actually discuss it. Okay. And he said, when you look into the different evidences, it was narrated that Tirmidhi had narrated upon Mu'adh that the Prophet ﷺ was asked about al-khudrawat, was asked about the fruits and the vegetables, and he said, لَيْسَ فِيهَا شَيْء, there's nothing that is due upon it. Here's one thing. That hadith, إسناد هذا الحديث ليس بصحيح. This hadith is not authentic. All right. But it was right there. It was mentioned right there. But you could see that at the time, just keep that one in mind. At the time, they didn't fully have all the different resources necessarily scrutinized. That's why you later needed more scholars in hadith to scrutinize and to research those hadith and see which one is authentic, which one is not authentic, which one is that. So when they quoted this, لَيْسَ فِيهَا شَيْء, he probably was not aware that this hadith is not actually authentic. And then الترمذي ليس يصح في هذا الباب عن النبي شيء. الترمذي said there's nothing that was actually authentic in regards to this matter that would be attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so then we go back to the Hanafis. I thought you said that there was zakah on all of that. Well, where did you get it from? Well, they said, we've got a hadith based on Sayyidah Aisha that فيما أنبتت الأرض من الخضر zakah, that everything that the earth would basically produce of greens, there's zakah on it. Let's see, right there, going back to the footnote, Ibn Abdul Barr, he said, وَلَمْ نَقِفْ عَلَيْهِ. He said, we don't have any resources to prove that. And let's see, الحافظ ibn Hajar in Talkhis al-Habir. Talkhis al-Habir is one of those important books. Let me just give you an idea about Talkhis al-Habir. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, he basically was Shafi'i madhab. Okay, al-Rafi'i had basically written a book for al-madhab al-Shafi'i, and al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, basically in 5 volumes, he went over all the ahadith that are in al-madhab al-Shafi'i plus the other madhahib. And he did a thorough and a full research on those ahadith, and he said in regards to that particular hadith, which is that there is zakah, that was the quote, that everything that the land or the earth produces, that there's zakah on it. And he went over that hadith and he found that there was a narrator, his name is Salih ibn Musa, and that he's actually a weak narrator. Okay, now you got us confused even more. And let's see, Abu Umar, which is Ibn Abdul Barr, he said, وَهَذَا حَدِيثٌ لَمْ يَرْوِهِ مِنْ ثِقَاتٌ أَصْحَابُ مَنْصُورٍ أَحَدٌ هَكَذَا وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ قَوْلُ إِبْرَاهِيم. He said, actually, there was no one that is trusted in narrating a hadith that had mentioned the hadith in that way, but it was a narration upon Ibrahim. And therefore, who's that? Well, he said, well, it was basically something that was narrated in Musannaf ibn Abdul Razak and Abu Yusuf, but nothing that was attributed all the way to the Prophet. In other words, it's an opinion and not something that goes back to the Prophet. Okay, Al-Qurtubi comments,
And he says, وإذا سقط الاستدلال من جهة السنة لضعف أسانيدها فلم يبقى إلا ما ذكرناه من تخصيص عموم الآية وعموم قول الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما سقط السماء العشر. And he said, well, since the sunnah / the ahadith are not authentic to support the opinion that obligates that we would pay zakah on everything that the earth produces, because all those ahadith are basically weak. He said the only thing that would be as an evidence to advocate for that opinion would really be to look at تخصيص عموم الآية. Basically, how in that ayah, in the comprehensive statement, وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, and pay the duty of it on the day of its harvest, would basically come in with a generalized statement of the Prophet ﷺ, فِيمَا سَقَتِ السَّمَاءُ الْعُشْرِ, with what the earth irrigates, or sorry, what the skies, in other words, natural irrigation, you would pay 10%. And of course, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad. Who's Muhammad? Muhammad is Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani. He's one of the major scholars. Without Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani, we would have probably never had a madhab Hanafi. He said, well, I guess in opposition to the Abu Hanifa, their own teacher, they said, not everything, ليس في شيء من الخضر زكاة إلا ما كانت له ثمرة باقية. Said not everything would basically be zakat eligible, except what would remain and have a fruit that would basically be, in other words, non-perishable, except a za'faran, because it would be weighed and it would have zakat in it. That's one of the most, I would assume that's so hard to weigh. Saffron, isn't it hard to weigh? I mean, I think they actually get it from those petals. Am I right? Is this the right thing that I'm talking about? It's one of the most expensive spices. Okay,
But
let's see.
light weight.
Extremely light. I mean, I don't know how you're going to weigh it.
And here say it مما يوزن. It's like
exactly.
Which scale?
Yes, you're going to weigh that. I wonder if they were also using the petals and the flowers, because if you're going to get just those little pieces, those little threads, really, that's going to be so hard to weigh. I mean, they're really weighing that with gold.
Maybe, yeah.
I wonder if they're weighing the actual petals and the actual flowers themselves, and not necessarily the threads that you would use. It's quite interesting. Muhammad used to consider al-usfur. Al-usfur is turmeric, al-kittan, and al-bazr. So those are just basically different types of grains. So I'll make the story short right there. Just wanted you to see the differences of opinions and just learn about that. And inshallah, allow me to stop right here. To be honest, I'm starting to get so tired. So I'm going to stop right here, and inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow. And inshallah, continue not necessarily in all the details. I'm going to try to make it short. You could see we're almost done with at least the zakah and that in regards to fruits and vegetables, but learned about that at least. But inshallah, tomorrow we'll continue this ayah and some things to learn about that. So for now, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Sorry, I really got tired. Because last night I was doing with Jannah Institute, all right, and plus, of course, the class that we did in the morning. So I'm worn out.
And today it's fiqh. It's more than
absolutely. Well, that's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy fiqh, but
too much.
Yeah, but I'm really worn out.
Yeah, back to explain it and for us to apply it. It's like not insane our time about these things. Zakat,
Right,
we deal with money, not more than that, with the
right. The
plants and fruits and stuff like that.
Right, right, right,
Mm,
right. I
yeah,
mean, so it's a completely different world, but I still wanted to explain it just so that we would get into, feeling the fiqh, and I
I know.
want to really feel that, we really gave Tafsir al-Qurtubi the
Mm,
amount of time that it deserves, and really learn all these details just to
yeah,
learn, even if we're not going to be farmers and going for, I guess, I don't think I'm ever going to be a farmer, basically getting 612 kilograms of whatever fruits and vegetables to see whether there's a get eligible. But I probably maybe have money and gold, but I don't think I'll ever work in fruits and vegetables and
yeah.
that. But at the end, I think it's, just the time that you spend in learning all of this, it's in itself, it's basically
Aj-
something that is reward eligible. Let's say it that way.
Yeah. And you can't hear anything. You smell about the fiqh and you forget yourself. Go deep, deep in the ocean
Absolutely,
of fiqh.
absolutely. It's reward eligible. You get the reward just for being patient and just
Yeah,
listening. Okay, just listening and trying to
yeah,
just like, okay, well, I'm never gonna need this piece of information,
yeah.
but okay, I'm listening.
And
It's reward eligible.
let you scuba diving deep in the ocean fiqh and enjoy it.
Exactly.
Allah يرضى عنك.
Exactly. Allah يحفظك يا ربي. So
Yeah.
this is it. Subhanallah wa hamdik. Oh, actually, some people actually have some things in the chat. Oh, Allah barik fik. Oh, Allah barik fik. Oh, everybody's just she was saying it's healthy too, not that sweet. Are you talking about the sugar cane? I think that's what
Yes,
Iram was
yes,
talking about.
yes.
Okay.
When you were talking about sugar cane, yes.
Is it okay for people that are diabetic? I'm not, alhamdulillah, I'm not diabetic. But
Uh,
I want
Actually, I mean, it is made of sugar, but mm, it is not that sweet. But many people take it for, I mean, it is good for liver. I don't know why, but I have seen, I mean, it is very famous for this issue. For liver, it is, I mean, many people take it. And I think it is good for like when the weather is very hot, because in our country it is taken like very famous drink in hot weather.
really
Yes,
interesting. I
Right.
guess I
and
gotta try it. Maybe I gotta
they
try it.
they
I-
always add lemon juice in it. Always add. So maybe that is the reason it doesn't feel, because I don't like sweet beverages, but this is tasty because they add lemon and even sometime ginger. So that is very healthy. Otherwise, this is very famous healthy drink actually.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. I'll try it. I'm not somebody that drinks anything other than really cappuccino, water, and right now ginger and tea.
Yes.
That's the only thing, but I don't drink any juices whatsoever. I haven't been drinking juices for almost 23 years now.
Wow. Why?
Right.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I was so big on um orange juice for some time, and then all of a sudden, I just cannot handle drinking any of that. It just gets me dizzy.
Uh-huh.
Actually, yeah.
Nothing,
Actually,
not any
America,
drink.
no juice is the more than 5%. I mean, maximum juice in actual juice box is maximum is 5%. So, I mean, in America, juices are very bad. Actually, do you know the food quality standard in America is much lesser than Canada?
Wow.
If you
Maybe
buy
that's why
pro if
maybe
you buy
Americans
the
are so
cheese of the
obese.
same if
Wow.
you buy cheese of the same company in Canada, the food standard are much better. That is why that is more healthy. But in America, they will not. I mean, in Canada, you will find many like original juices without any preservative and without any color. So is with the cookies and all that. But in America, you will never find.
Yeah.
Wow, here in Malaysia,
I noticed that most of the products are coming from New Zealand and Australia. We've got a
Right.
lot of products that are coming from New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, and China. A lot of products. We're talking about cheeses. We're talking about, I mean, Malaysians, I can tell they're not big on cheese, but you know, all the imported goods, you know, that we're used to, I guess, cheese and cereals and all of that, it's actually coming from China, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand.
Yeah, because the product in America is like mustansakh. It's not real.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the reason, because I had seen also cereals coming from Minnesota, like Kellogg's, in General Mills and all of that. That's coming from Minnesota, so it kind of feels home.
Uh,
Right. So yeah, they do have that. But you know, they do have some American products, for sure, you know.
mhm.
But I don't know if it's in terms of distance that it would, you know, take I guess cost and shipment. So I don't know if that's the reason. So they prefer getting things that are nearby, China, Singapore, what's it called? Uh, Australia. So that's probably closer. I don't know if that's the reason, you know, cost and shipment, or I don't know if it's also something that relates to whatever is in the ingredients. I don't know in terms of that, you know, be interesting to know.
I have a question about the sugar. The cane sugar, which is we can find it on the shelf, many stores like Walmart. It's in color, not white. It's like light brown or creamy. Is it the same warning that Prophet ﷺ warning us to avoid too white the salt and sugar, the white
But,
sugar?
you
Is
know,
it
the
include?
hadith that warns you of the two white things, the salt and the sugar, is not an authentic hadith.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm not telling you to go dig on sugar, okay?
No way.
That's not what I'm saying.
For the
I'm
cane
just telling
sugar.
you it's not authentic. I'm not telling you to go and dig on sugar and it's like, yeah, finally, I always wanted my white sugar. My
No,
granny
no,
had white sugar. No, I'm just
we
saying
know
it's
we
that
know
kind of.
the white sugar it makes like a hashashat idam, okay, because of the substance they
Osteoporosis.
added for it. But for the cane sugar, more healthy because it's natural,
Okay.
nothing inside, and this better than the other one, the white one.
I only get
Just
brown sugar just because that tastes better. I feel that it tastes way better. Um, I'm not a health professional, so you can skip me on that. But you
If
know, in
it's
terms of the
without
two white,
molasses, yeah,
what?
without molasses, it tastes normal. But if they
Okay.
add molasses and it's like not dry, it give weird taste.
It kind of gives it a weird taste. So I think you're talking about the brown sugar that we use for the chocolate chip cookies. And you're talking about the sugar cane. So there's the sugar cane and there's the other one, which is brown sugar with the molasses.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
moisture,
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
dry.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
change the taste
Right.
of coffee, taste of tea, and
Yeah, yeah.
cappuccino.
No, I use the sugar cane kind, the brown sugar cane kind of sugar. That's what I use.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But the hadith is not authentic. The one that you're supposed to be avoiding, the two whites, it's not an authentic hadith. So, but it doesn't mean, like I said, I'm not telling you to go dig on your sugar, but
no.
just
uh,
letting you
I
know
don't know.
it's not
And honey,
authentic.
Dr. Ashraf,
avoid
I
sugar.
still don't have,
Go
sorry,
ahead, dear.
still don't have success to upload two different files in Zoom. I tried it, so and I always miss when you think you first share the screen and then you start the Zoom meeting, or you just upload in front of us. I mean,
So
I'm talking about the Zoom, your Zoom screen. I still don't have success. Other day I asked you how
you
to
can't
share
see what
two
I'm
different.
sharing? Are you saying you can't see what I'm sharing?
Yes, you are sharing two different screens,
Yeah.
Musaf and Tafseer, right?
Yes.
I tried it, but I didn't get the. I mean, I was not able to. It was showing
Hold
only
on.
one.
So in your classes, you were trying to share two screens. Is that what you were saying?